Ladies, do you know the secret? By the secret, I mean, what are the qualities in a woman that men absolutely adore? Well, we're going to dig deep, and I have a guest who's going to tell us all about it. This is his expertise. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Secret Formula of Femininity for women who want to live a more feminine, fun, and fabulous life. I'm Dr. Nicole Montero, your host on this weekly journey to unlocking your inner radiance, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and becoming the best version of yourself. All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Nicole, your host and guide on this journey to tapping into your feminine essence. And I'm so excited to have a guest with me. And of course, this is season 2, so we're digging deep into topics that are really going to help you in your relationships. And so I have Bob Grant, who is a relationship expert. I'm going to read his bio and tell you a little bit more about him. But first, I want to say welcome, Bob. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Nicole. I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to being here.
Yes, and just to give us a teaser, what is something that women probably don't think a lot about or don't know a lot about that is really important to men?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I have found that most women don't realize how important their emotions are to a man. And a lot of them have been told the opposite, which I know we can get into.
Okay, all right. That is, oh my gosh, that's key. And I'm sure that's going to be surprising to a lot of women. But first, I want to tell you a little bit more about my guest. So, Bob Grant is a clinically trained relationship expert, podcaster, and best selling author of The Women Men Adore. He's the founder of Relationship Headquarters, where he specializes in helping women emotionally connect with a man, attract true love, get married, and for those in a relationship, get unstuck and begin connecting as a couple. I absolutely love this. To learn more, I'm going to put the link to his website and how to get in touch with him at the link in the show notes. He's clinically trained and he knows exactly what men want and how women can learn about it and implement it in their lives. So, welcome, Bob. I love to start with a good story. Like, this sounds so fascinating. And as I, read over it before and even rereading it now, I'm like, yes, yes, we have to know as women how to attract the relationship that we want, but also once we're there, how not to get stuck, or if we're stuck, how to get unstuck. So tell us a little bit about how you even came to this work. Like, I know you're a man, but that doesn't necessarily qualify you to tell women what men want, right? Or to help them in
No,
that area. So how did you come
no,
to
it's
this?
funny because a lot of times I'm in coaching circles, they'll say, like, you specialize with women. And I try to explain a little bit about it's like they chose me. There was one client years ago when I was doing a bunch of stuff in the hospital and started outpatient, and she was just had a divorce, 4 small children, I think all of them under the age of 10. And I remember her looking at me saying, Bob, who's going to want to be with someone like me? And I get it from a number standpoint. She's like 42. And I said, yeah, I agree from that standpoint. If you look at it that way, sure, maybe there won't. I said, but what if we frame it differently? Like, and I believe it's true. You have 4 wonderful children, and you don't necessarily need someone to take care of the kids as much as you want a partner. And just that shift in her, didn't change everything immediately, but she was the first one because she dared to hope, even though it seemed like there's no way she's going to get remarried, came out of an awful divorce. And she was the one that I didn't necessarily know how to do it, but my heart went out to her. And if she was willing to try, we experimented with it a little bit and really was focused on the whole idea of putting her heart first, which just seemed foreign to her, especially the
Uh-huh.
marriage she came out of. And that was really the start of it.
Oh, I love that. You know what? Because what I heard with that, and I hear from so many women, is the hopelessness that can come about. Like, I'm too this, I'm too that, who's going to want me? And what happens is that kind of radiates out an unattractive energy. And so for you to be able to help her make the shifts, which I'm sure you'll tell us about your method. Like, I think that's just making that energy shift so that you see all that you have to offer versus feeling hopeless and feeling like nobody's going to want me, because that's not an energy that's attractive.
No, and even like with you and I talking, the goal with her is I said, I just want these men to see the side you let me see. So it wasn't so much teaching her a lot of stuff as far as giving her a picture of you can already do this. And granted, it's a little different with me. I'm a man, and she comes to see me professionally, so it's for her. But I've had a number of women that once they start sharing, usually they may start crying, and then they'll say inevitably, "I'm sorry. I'm a guy, so it's embarrassing to them. I realize." But then I'll say, "What for?" For crying. I'm sorry. And I always tell them, I said, I get it's uncomfortable. I said, but I'm flattered that you feel safe enough that you could cry in front of me. I said, it doesn't change my opinion of you. And then part of what I like to use with me being a man is, and I'll tell them, I said, if you can do this with me, you'll be fine out there. I said, we're not changing who you are as much as, being more enhanced with who you are. So she was the one that made that easy because she was willing to try stuff. And a lot of it is her willingness to, like you said, I feel embarrassed or I feel overwhelmed. Well, let's start with that because I'm assuming it is overwhelming to think about, gosh, being a single mom and how am I going to make this work and with fighting with my ex. And it was hard for her to have hope. But I think that's one thing when I was listening to some of your podcasts is how important it seems like you think hope is too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as especially as a clinician, I always say, like, whether I'm operating with my therapy clients or my coaching clients, if I don't have hope, I'm failing my clients, because that's the one bridge that I can see what they can't see about themselves, the potential. Now, they have to do the work, but if I'm kind of down in the dumps with them, it's like, well, what is the point? So I think, yeah. Now, why do you think, because you mentioned that we've been taught the opposite, women have been taught that emotions aren't the way to go. Like, why do you think we're here where we have to convince women to tap into their emotions?
Well, I'll be curious as to what you hear from with your clients, but most of mine, I hear some version of I've been told, don't be weak, don't complain, don't whine. There's probably a lot more, but the idea is anything that's negative, as though there's negative emotions. And what I like to remind them is, I said, I don't think there's negative emotions, there's just emotions. Now, like if someone gets angry and they're violent, I'll remind them, I said, that's not anger. I said, that's a temper. That's what you do with it. That's not. I said, but telling someone how to feel is like telling someone whether they're hungry or not. It's just a feeling, but they equate with that's who they are. It's not who you are. If I'm sad, my ears don't get bigger. If I'm overwhelmed, my nose doesn't grow or tell a lie. It doesn't, I mean, it doesn't change who I am. It feels like it. But when I, start stuffing those feelings off, what ends up happening is the feelings I like get stuffed off and the other ones get stuffed as well. So I'm like guarded or I'm not guarded. I'm being a little binary, I realize. But folks think they can cut it on and off. I'm like, you can't. You can't.
Yeah.
That's it. Nodding. So you've seen this.
Yeah, like it's so much negative. We start catastrophizing, like, if I feel this emotion, then this is going to happen, which is going to lead to this, and this. And a lot of it is based that I've seen on past experiences. So I love that story of the woman you were helping, because she had a bad, marriage that told her not to have hope, not to trust, not to do a lot of the things that I'm sure you were trying to encourage her to do. So I'm curious about, because what I hear is, well, what do you expect? I've had these bad things happen. So why would you expect me to, like, why should I trust what you're saying? Because my evidence is that these are the bad
Mhm.
things that have happened and that are going to happen.
It's almost like the way you're saying is, how dare you? How dare you expect me to hope? They don't, no
Yeah.
one usually says it that way, but just like you said, that's so common one. And what I remind them of is, I believe that part of our brain knows things are possible. It's why we have hope. I know with children, when they have the idea of being Superman for boys or a princess. Once a child realizes that I'm not going to be Superman, no one grieves that. No one has to go to therapy for that. They just like, okay, I can't fly. Our
Mm-hmm.
little girls realize this thing really isn't magical. This wand I'm waving over here. So once we realize something's impossible, we're not stuck with it. I think the reason we're stuck is part of us knows I can still have it. I don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, but just I want this. And especially relationship. I mean, the natural result of that is you have a relationship. I mean, as opposed to making it. But if I get hurt enough times, I'm afraid to get my hopes up. I'm afraid.
Mm.
And what I like to start with is, what is something that someone already does well, and can we build on that?
Mm-hmm.
So most women I talk with, listen to, this was discovered more by accident than being sought after. I'm generalizing. Most
Okay.
women I talk with are really hard on themselves. I mean, like really hard.
Yes.
And I'm that reaction you have is what I'm used to saying when I say
Yeah.
it. They're like, "Oh, yes, over
They're
here,"
like,
because no
ah.
one. But just in case someone might disagree, but I haven't
Mm-hmm.
had it yet. And we've done something I get to later, a journaling thing, and I would see their thoughts. And I thought, if you talk to your friends the way you do this, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
fussing when I say it. I'm like, and they cringe. So I said, what if we started treating your heart the way you would treat a little girl? To give them a picture. Because every woman I
Mm-hmm.
know, if I just here's a little strange girl, they'd be
They're
fine.
so gentle and
They're
kind, right?
gentle, sit down next to me, and if the child was crying, I don't know what I'd do, but they would do something. Just sit here, maybe listen. I said, but you wouldn't tell her to get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Stop crying, quit whining. I say, but now imagine your heart sitting over there in the chair on the left. And she says, when do I get my turn? Because I'm
Mm.
told to get over it. Don't be weak. Don't complain. Don't be so needy. I said, all I'm after is you treating your heart the way you do any little girl.
Yeah,
I said,
yeah.
my daughter's older now, but I would used to say, if I could, I'd let you borrow my daughter for a week. You do
And just
fine.
sit next to her
Just
and
sit there and
uh-huh.
do whatever. You protect her, whatever you do,
Mm-hmm.
but you wouldn't scream and holler. And so at least that's to give them the insight as to, oh, there really is a disconnect between the way I treat others and the way I treat me. And
Yeah.
men pick up on that.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So, and I absolutely agree. The thoughts, the inner thoughts that when women tell you, and men as well, but like we're specifically women, it's heartbreaking. So, but what do you tell us a little more about that? Like, how do men pick up on it? What do they observe, and what does it mean to them?
Sure. So when I talk to men, they're not going to be really good at saying, "Hey, I can tell you're having negative thoughts," or "We don't."
Yeah.
And men aren't totally binary, but it helps, I think, if I tell women are that men are that way. That
Mm-hmm.
we just see the general flavor of something. And so, if a woman's hard on herself, she's going to be more guarded. She's going to be more cautious in what she says. She's going to be less playful. I mean, she may do an extreme or the other,
Mm-hmm.
and she's going to be reserved. And for a man, that comes across as either she's tougher than she really is, so therefore, okay, fine, I don't need to do much stuff. You're fine with crumbs I give you. They don't say
Mm-hmm.
that, but that's the
Yeah.
or I joke around and nothing seems to hurt your feelings. And I tell women, I say, don't do that. You're giving him the impression you're a guy. Don't
Uh-huh.
that's not
Like,
helpful.
bro,
Yeah, bro,
uh-huh.
yeah, work is one thing, but not with. And I said, it's going to make him hard to get close to you because when you feel as a woman, we don't feel that often. We usually need a catalyst, a
Mm.
child, a woman, a rock concert, sporting event. We need something to kind of
Okay.
kick.
Uh-huh.
And we get to experience that through you. And it's not even so much the fun feelings, it's all of them. Because if I'm close with a woman, I get to learn, oh, I can feel stuff and it's not the end of the world. Because for
Mm-hmm.
us, there's a problem. Shut the feelings off, hyper focus on fixing it, and just become real. And it's like a different world we start to experience. And we like that. I think there's a reason why men chase women and have for all of mankind, and I would
Uh-huh.
argue will, is that we don't get access to that without you.
Mm.
Your cautiousness actually robs us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just that women should do it, as I'm asking them, be gracious to men for their sake, not just yours. As you
That's
feel,
powerful.
he will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you've experienced this.
Yeah, no, I'm just sitting, my head is just, I'm just smiling for those of you listening, because I loved how you broke it down, and I try to tell women this. And I think there's two things. First, I think there's so much value in hearing it from a man. It really is. And then you said it in such a very practical way because I'll say, hey, you need to be vulnerable. That is what's
Mm,
going to make him lean in to try to protect you, to want to get close to you. But I think just the way that you painted the picture of it's almost like a woman's nature is going to be the gateway for a man to even be at
yes.
his highest self as far as his, being in touch with himself.
Yeah, because I think men are restless by nature, which I
Mm.
think is part of the reason it propels us to search. And that's why I don't think it's good for women to like do a lot of stuff for men.
Uh
I mean, I
huh.
don't mean not be gracious, but as far as
Yeah.
like reaching out to him, I'm like, don't do that, please. Because for us men, it's what we overcome and what we accomplish. That's how our self esteem is built.
Okay.
Not poor boy, you're okay. I mean, if I'm playing sports and someone did that with me, it'd be an insult. What I want to hear is you're fine. Get up there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it to a woman. But for a man, it is. And therefore, I like solving problems. I'm wired for it.
Uh huh.
I enjoy doing that. It's not a burden. The reward I want is the emotional response. So I do something you like and you're impressed, just let me know somehow. I don't
Uh
mean
huh.
fake it. I mean, if you are,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't go buy that at Walmart. I can't reproduce. I can make more money, but I
Yeah.
can't get that. And the smile on your face, the way you wiggle when you eat chocolate pudding or whatever you
Uh
like,
huh.
is just like, oh man, I did good.
Yeah.
And I don't think little boys ever outgrow that throughout their whole
Mhm.
lifetime.
Mhm.
And we are better at being adults, but we love that reaction from a woman, and that lets us know, oh, okay, that works. I should do more of that, much more so than being taught.
Okay. Yes. So, what do you say? I have so many questions. What do you say to women who, and this is what I've heard, who say, like, well, why do I have to validate him? And why do I have to build his self esteem? Like, why do I have to do all of that?
I know those that aren't watching can't see the way she did her head sideways, and I thought that is perfect because I've
And this
heard
is what
that.
I hear from my audience.
Yes, no, I can tell. It's not that you have to any more than a man has to be a gentleman. What I say is, I say, how about if we give someone what they like, we're talking being authentic too. So if you don't like the restaurant he took you to, let's don't praise him for that. You're going to get more of that.
Yeah.
I had one couple that reminds me of this, and he was saying to me, Bob, can you tell her whatever, explain something? I said, okay, I'll try. And she tended to, when she was upset, she would tell him how she felt. I don't like this over here. I said, that's
Mhm.
great. I love that. Now, when he does something you like, um, do you like just kind of share everything? And she says, no. I said that. She goes, I'm more of a private person. Oh, okay. So you're not private when he messes up, but when he does something great, you keep it inside. I said, you're going to train him not to make a mistake if you keep doing this, because the
Mhm.
only feedback he gets is when he screws up. And granted, he does at times. He might say the wrong thing. But see, that I like your word vulnerability. Her
Mhm.
lack of willingness to be vulnerable was actually robbing her, not just him, because how is he supposed to know he's doing a good job without that reinforcement? And have to, I think what most women mean with that is I have to pump him up, I have to exaggerate stuff, and we're saying, no, that's ridiculous. That's a child.
Yeah.
That's not. But if you share it when you feel it, I mean, that takes a little conscious effort,
Mhm.
especially if you can share some degree of an emotion. And this is it's a little bit of a pet peeve, but it's more my thing. I try to get women in general not to say thank you. I mean, thank you's fine.
Uh huh.
But if I say, if a man says, will you marry me? She says, yes, thank you. See, it kind of loses something in
It's
the
kind of like,
mix.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it is like that. But if she's, dinner, it's a simple thing, but dinner was wonderful. That was amazing. Again, save it for stuff you really like. And it will, see, that's the easy way to me to practice vulnerability.
Mhm.
It's much better than just like
It's not
sharing
this
everything.
like ripping your
Yeah,
heart
pull everything
open and
off.
uh huh.
Yes, it's more, and it is a little uncomfortable, but that's the part that softens a man too.
Mm.
Is that when we see that in you ladies, I mean, that's why daddy's little girl gets whatever she wants. It's because daddy's
Yeah.
little girl's like that all the time.
Mhm.
His guard just goes down and goes into protective mode.
Yeah.
He's more
Yeah.
attentive to her. And why shouldn't a wife or a girlfriend be able to do the same thing?
I always tell women that it's like the you see how you shared that shift, like thank you is not inaccurate, right? But it's pretty dry and, emotionless. And if you could just shift your words a little bit into like that made me feel great, or that
Mhm.
was wonderful, or what, like that could it just trigger something in the brain that says ding 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 ding, almost like you hit the lottery or something at a
Yes,
slot
it really
machine.
is. Yeah, and it is because you made that look so simple. And I tell women, I go, it is simple. And I'm not saying it's always easy. It may be a little uncomfortable to begin with.
Yeah.
I said, but also I find that women they'll have a harder time with this. Not to overly label, but usually
Yeah.
there's some trauma or something,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, past experiences where they
Yeah.
got burned being authentic and they got ridiculed. We say, okay, that's fine. If we have to take a look at that, sure we will. But it doesn't change that, the thing you want, if it's closeness, we start with, can you be close with yourself? And if we're
Mm.
harsh with ourselves, that's kind of a way of detaching and just kind of pulling it safe. And
Yeah.
I'll only open up when it's totally safe. I'm like, you'll never open up
You'll
then.
never predict that,
You'll
right?
you'll,
Like,
you'll never predict that.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's and we want to be wise and not just open up too quickly. I tell the difference between being authentic and transparent. So transparent would be
Okay.
sharing everything.
Uh-huh.
We don't want that. That's no good. No boundaries there. But authentic is when it's appropriate. When it fits, is not holding back
Mm-hmm.
and not
Mm-hmm.
waiting for him all the time. Because, and you tell me what you think, but I think women are just better at this than men. I'm
Yeah.
generalizing.
Yeah.
If we leave men, I'm like, please don't do that.
It's such a
You're gonna,
strength that, yeah, we have that. I think when trauma or other things, societal messages start to tell us it's not good, but I do truly believe, like you said, that that's something we can be good at. And now tell me what happens in for a man when a woman is too transparent too soon. Like you made that difference between transparency.
yes. Usually it's overwhelming. I think it's one version. Gottman calls it being flooded. He
Uh-huh,
means it a different way,
yes.
but it's the same thing. It's just overwhelming because since we're not either used to it or we're not anticipating it. Like if I go to a concert or something, I expect just to be just euphoric. But
Uh-huh.
if I get this too much too soon, there's not the context. I don't really know you well enough to know what you're sharing with me. Is this what you always do? Is this because it's me? Are you,
Yeah.
is this good or bad? See, I don't know how to interpret it. And I'm overwhelmed with the emotion. And when I get overwhelmed as a man, I tend to shut down.
Yeah.
So I'll either get
Yeah.
quieter. Some guys will get more defensive, and that's more of them. But it's like too much gasoline or too much sugar for the cake. It
Okay.
just too
Yeah.
much of something is actually not a good thing.
Well, is that similar? Like, we hear a lot now about love bombing, warning women, like when a man love bombs you, he's laying everything on. I wonder if it's a similar type of experience for a man. Like, you're just so open and transparent. And like you said, what do I even make of this?
You mean like when men do it?
Yeah, like when men, I
Oh yeah.
guess what I heard is like men will tend to love bomb, but the opposite for women is like overly transparent, not necessarily trying to be manipulative, but it just
Mhm.
comes off like too much.
See, I think with men, and I've told men this. I told my boys as they're 16 and they're learning about this. I'm like, guys, rule number one: don't be needy. I don't mean never express it, but just don't ask for too much affirmation. Don't share too much stuff. I say girls, they're teenagers. I say girls
Yeah.
hate it. And they will always hate it. As you become an adult, I mean, you can't have a bad day. But like you the love bombing stuff, I'm like, I get it. You're nervous. Don't bite your lip. Take a walk. Call me. Whatever you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That because I think it comes across, and I'd ask you to most women as um, it makes them doubt. They don't see that as strength. They see that as weakness. And more than anything else, once you cause a doubt, I tell men, I'm like, you don't want her imagination working against you. That's the thing with a woman. And
Yeah.
so if
Yeah.
that in that way, it might have been a good thing you were nervous, but she doesn't need to know that.
Yeah, yeah. There could be another way to deal with that. And also, what I'm thinking of when you say that is time. So many things need time. And so as you get to know a person more and get closer, then you share some of those other feelings. But if it's so much in the beginning, they haven't had an opportunity to experience you in that other way that feels more secure, and you're just coming with doubts and flooding with
Mhm.
love bombing.
Yeah, I like the way you said that because especially the way it's drawn out like that, even with friendships. I mean, rarely does someone just meet someone and you're my best friend. Or
Yeah.
it just takes a little bit of time to see people in different circumstances and different reactions, and also where I'm at too. So I may just be having a down day and meet someone. Okay, that's not necessarily my best. Maybe that
Mm-hmm.
was all I could do for today. And if we think the beauty of time is that I don't have to put as much emphasis on each thing. I mean,
Mm.
especially I tell folks like a first date, so you have one goal to get a second date, or at least to get an offer,
Okay. Uh-huh.
which is different than what do I think of him? Is he a good potential over here? I'm like, you're thinking too much. Just
Uh-huh. Is he emotionally
let's
intelligent?
is
Would
he
he make a good
intelligent?
stepdad?
Yes, all
And
the all the list we
mm-hmm.
I said those are great questions, but there's no way to find that out on a first date.
Mm-hmm.
That let's just and the same with men, the same way. It's just let's don't do too much with her. Just be kind. Can you listen? Just the basic stuff. Can you ask an interesting question? Just something so that he has time to get to know you like your friends do, like other people know. And then you can evaluate better. And it's much easier that I'm just going to focus on one date to see if I can make sure the other person has a good time or at least be focused on them than all those other things trying to wrap up at once. I think
Mm-hmm.
rushing stuff is just so difficult to get it right.
Is it that we're in a space in society where everything is so high stakes, like this could be my one shot to meet the man of my dreams or the woman of my, because we do place so much emphasis on each encounter. It's like it's so make or break, and it's anxiety producing.
Yeah, I was almost going to say, I know that's a rhetorical question. It's not watching you laugh when you ask it. I mean, it's been said, but it's, Instagram. I mean, I love Instagram, but all the social media stuff, it does create a lot of that. If you don't like what you see, you can flip, even dating apps
Mm-hmm.
the same way, just kind of flip through,
Slip to the next one.
slip to the next one, and, making decisions off a snapshot. And I don't know that that's a great way to really evaluate someone. I've had
Mm-hmm.
wives that were clients that would tell me back when the dating apps were getting started, they would say, "Oh, thank goodness we didn't meet." She goes, "My husband's awful on that." She goes, "We'd never met.
He would
He
have,
could not.
yeah.
He could not write a profile. He's a great husband." She goes, "But he's terrible at that stuff."
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't forgotten that. A few of them told me that. So I try to get folks, like you said, to slow down. And I get how easy it is to move on, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that faster, I don't think, is the solution. Is
Mm.
like with your podcast about feminine. One of the things with feminine as a man is it's got a slow quality to it. Not
Mm.
always, but it's got that. It slows me down as a man.
Yeah.
And there's very few things that do. And so when I get that and experience it in a woman, it really is like taking a deep breath. It just feels relaxing, enchanting, all those things. And most of the time,
I I want my audience out. If you could just repeat that, right? Ladies, I need you to hear this. He is saying, from a man's perspective, from an expert perspective, from someone who's worked with men and women, that the slowness is very, you didn't say this, but I'm getting intriguing. It draws one in. It's something that can't be gotten elsewhere. And it is really unique to you as a woman, really at home in your femininity. That it's very, I loved hearing that it really is attractive. And it's more than attractive, right? It sounds like it's
no, it is the way you said it was good because it's multiple things, and I think for everyone listening, the more you listen to you talking about femininity, even if they don't always remember, the depth of it is it touches different points in us that we're not good at describing as much as we feel it when we experience it. And so, and it's not that a woman is like always feminine. That'd be silly
yeah.
if like 24/7. But if that's what she's known for, and that's what I relate to her with, then that naturally lowers my guard. And for men, I'll say it a different way, what you said, which is what we really want is a best friend. Now, we're not going to
Mm.
put that in a profile because that sounds like a buddy. That's not what it
Uh-huh.
means. It's, I can only have a best friend really with a woman. I mean, I've got guys that are great friends,
Yeah.
but there's a limit to how far that goes. I can never be that close with them like I could a partner.
Mm.
And that feminine is one of the gateways to that because I'm accessing with you. You're actually my emotions, my intellect. I mean, I want to bounce ideas and things off of you. And that feminine doesn't mean you defer to me everything to all the time, as much as it helps me to talk with you without us being competitive,
Mm-hmm.
without us, even with my guy friends, I mean, we both can't be in charge all the time. So someone
Yeah,
defers. If
yeah,
that's somebody laying down their nature, with a woman, she doesn't have to lay down her nature. She gets to be who she is. And I'm like, more please, more please. Yes, waiter, wrap it up. I'm taking this home. It feels that good.
yeah,
And just the experience with her is it does something, it stimulates part of my mind. It's like when they said I feel complete, that's a great way to describe it because it really does feel that way when I'm experiencing that with her.
yeah, yeah. So it really paints a picture. And when women, what I've noticed, and I talk to women, so it's not that I'm picking on women. My audience, they know. When they have this kind of checklist, and this is what I'm hearing a lot from women on the checklist. Like, okay, it used to be whatever, tall, handsome, six figures, but it's like someone who's emotionally intelligent and can communicate. What do you take that to mean, and how, like, it's like, oh, how does, what, when a man hears that, what does that mean? And
So I'm laughing because I can tell you've had this conversation before. So a lot of it's kind of subjective. So
Mhm.
I get from a emotionally intelligent or good communicator, and when I ask them, they say, "So I understand we have to have the basics in place. You have to be able to talk with him." I said, "But if you're asking him that's what you need. What I'm more interested in is it congruent? The ones I see, I just had someone with one of the classes we did is write out what you want. She said, a strong, really decisive man at business who is tender and affectionate. And I said, those don't go together.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying he can't be those, but those are two different skill sets. He can be good at one. He can't be good at both.
Uh-huh.
No man can be good at both those. But I want it. I understand you want it. I said, but from his standpoint is how am I to be your hero? So under stress, I'm going to resort to one of those. So I'm either going to be more attentive and listen. Okay, some guys do that, or I'm going to want to build you something. Or I'm going to want to protect. That's going to be my nature.
Yeah.
I have to have a way. And so a woman knowing you can pick what you want, but I find if when the list gets big, you get things that don't go together just because I
Mm.
want it. And I find in general, not to overuse this, but the deeper someone's trauma, usually the more rigid they can be. Like, and they'll pick
Yes.
things. No, I must have those two things because I missed out growing up. So now it's my turn. I'm not going to miss out. Yes, I understand how bad you want those. But see, that's the way to stay single forever. And I
Okay.
would do the same with men. I want a
Uh-huh.
woman, I've heard this, that's in great shape, is never going to gain weight. I said, you mean like ever? Like never gain weight and like never have a bad day? Never,
Uh-huh.
never, never? See, that's not a woman. That's an ideal he's got in his head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I said, that's porn. That's not a real woman. You
Yeah.
can't be intimate with
Stepford
that.
wives, as we
That's
used to
Stepford
say.
wise, and
Yeah.
you're going to be out of your mind. I tell them.
Mm-hmm.
I know you think you want that, you don't, because he doesn't. He just wants the fun feelings. I'm like, I'll tell you where that's going to lead. I said, you're going to get so irritated with her because you're not going to get a real person.
Yeah. Yeah.
That lack of congruency where things go together is usually where I find some rigidness with lists, men and women, not just women.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Because they missed out. I said, but some of that is we have to grieve of, okay, I didn't get that. How do I grieve that so that I can actually have a relationship I want with a real person, someone I
Mm-hmm.
can actually get close to, who can see my flaws as well as the things that I really love about myself or people admire, both.
Yeah. Yeah. A more holistic acceptance of yourself. You said earlier something like you have to get close to yourself first. A woman before she can get close to someone else, a partner or something. So, how would she get close to herself? Because I'm hearing like this rigidity is a defense mechanism. and it really, doesn't draw in the kind of man you really want. But how does she even learn to get close to herself?
Yeah, that's a great question because I know most women have tried. So it's not a
Yes.
lack of effort. It's part of Alfred Adler back in grad
Mm-hmm.
school, studied him,
Uh-huh.
loved him. But he had this thing called the courage to be imperfect. And, you go back to school, there's a few things that stood out. That was one of them that
Yes.
stuck with me. And the courage to be imperfect, again, is something similar to what a woman would do with a child, with a girl. She would, okay, this is the child, good days and bad days. I'll still be nice to them. And some of that graciousness with themselves, it's not, I just accept myself for who I am and don't grow, as much as taking that same approach of if I'm willing to take risk, if I'm willing to practice with safe people, if I'm willing to let someone help me, and just to start to experience those painful things specifically. Let's say I don't do well with compliments.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guard deflect them. Well, if I start practicing something simple like thank you, that sounds simple to the rest of us, but for someone, oh my gosh, that's just
That's
woo,
like earth
that's over
shattering.
here. And
Uh-huh.
as they get that nervousness, and then someone doesn't make fun of them like they're used to, or someone doesn't roll their eyes, that's how stuff gets healed. Of I can feel this, and it doesn't have the same result as it did growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And as they're willing to practice that, I mean, usually they do that with someone like you or me. Is they do that and get
Yeah.
the feedback of,
Yeah.
that's fine. Oh, really? And because I don't know of a way for painful things to get healed unless we're willing to re-experience them to some degree. I mean, I love
Yeah.
cognitive. I love all
Changing your
means
thoughts and
focus,
stuff. Yeah.
changing your thoughts, love
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. But when you get emotional pain, what I want it to be is I can be scared and it's no big deal within reason, or I can feel
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed and I'm still okay, or I can be sad and the world's not ending. But
Mm-hmm.
that's only going to happen, especially with a partner. If you see this with a man, sees you scared and he's like, it's okay, I'm here, and
Uh-huh.
then never
He
experienced
doesn't
that. It's like,
manipulate
he
you or
doesn't
run away
manipulate,
or
doesn't. And ladies, those men do exist. I
mm-hmm.
promise.
Mm-hmm.
They do exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I like to do. Ideally, it's with you and me in a
Mm-hmm.
session. But even beyond that, it's so that it can be with a partner and them to see, oh, I'm loved even no matter how I feel or even on good
Mm-hmm.
days and bad. Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah. And it's what we call clinically the corrective emotional experience. And I
Mhm.
think, you this is kind of an aside, but I heard people saying, well, you can just go to Chat GPT and type in what your problem, it'll tell you all the advice.
Yeah.
But I'm
Mhm.
like, it's not going to replace what happens when we
Mhm.
connect human to human and have you have that like that more positive emotional experience because it's not just in your head, it's like it's an emotional experience.
No, I agree. I mean, some things we can do that way. I mean, come up with a plan. But there's just like we do with clients. I mean, some of it's getting to know them. And I heard a
Mm-hmm.
quote. I forget who told me. It says, "Love your clients," and I forgot the rest of it. But it was to really invest. I mean, appropriately. But the
Yeah.
idea is to care. Is as much as we can, and then to point stuff out. Because sometimes if they're doing something that may come across as rude or whatever, is to
Mm-hmm.
point that out. But in a way, that's not who they are. But this
Yeah.
is how it probably comes across. And then I'm assuming you felt nervous. Yes, I felt nervous. I've heard that one.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand. I
What do
appreciate
you
you
think?
practicing with me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, because I'd rather them practice with me than
Mm.
have to figure it on their own. I'm like, we can go much faster. I'm like, I'm the one you practice with, but make your mistakes with me. So when you go out
Yeah.
there dating, okay, we're already 3 steps ahead, and we're much farther along toward actually finding and attracting that man that's really meant for you.
Yeah. 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 So the corrective emotional experience, trying out in little ways. The other thing I took was like these, I love that. Your list, you need to look at your requirements when you're out dating or looking for a partner. Are the things congruent? Are you asking for two opposite things that can't really, not say they can never, but that don't go together? You used a phrase that I love, the hero response. And I always tell women, you want to learn how to trigger his hero response. But tell us about this hero response and what that's all about.
Sure, I like talking about this. So as you're saying this, part of me is thinking, ladies, it's so easy. Now that's a man talking, right?
You don't need a
Because we're
whole 2 weeks to
no,
learn it, right?
we like being your hero. That's little boys do this. We like showing off. We like flexing my muscle, and he's like, "Wow, what a big muscle!" Now, if I don't have a muscle, it's ridiculous for you to say, "What a big muscle." You can't lie to us. That doesn't
Yeah.
work. But the hero thing is just simply your admiration, the fact that you're impressed, that you're pleased, that you're happy. In that sense, men are easy to please. Now, not all men. There's exceptions, of course. So
Mm-hmm.
those aside. And if we see that in you, that we've made you happy, because we have this drive to make you happy. And one of the things I'll tell women when a guy's or husband or boyfriend isn't doing something they like, I say, now be careful with this. I'm thinking of one wife who wanted her husband to stop smoking pot. Back then it was called pot. And she tried all the stuff shaming. She tried the literature. I said, let's just experimental. I said, and this is true. I said, tell him, when you smoke pot, it doesn't make me happy. I said, then stop talking. She said, that? Yeah, just try it. So she tries it stuff. He's like, what? Ah, at least they got a reaction.
Uh-huh.
Just leave it alone. And she's not making him do anything, but not making her happy irritates us, men. It's not, you're not making me do anything. It just grates on
It
us in a good
can't,
way.
it's like this
Yeah, it's
feeling underneath.
unsettling. It's unnerving. I would do the same thing if he has these close friends that are women. Okay, I understand setting boundaries, but try it this way. We're not happy because
Yeah.
what it does for a man is it makes us realize: is this worth what I'm choosing? Her not being happy, because I mean, your happiness is such the prize. Because your
Wow.
happiness lets me know I'm your hero.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm the man, and I want to be that with you. That look in your eye that you do, and so the more feedback I get with that, then I'll do whatever it takes within reason to keep that. It's not even
Yeah.
so much all the stuff you're doing as much as me not messing it up. As long as I get that feedback from you or that interaction, then my job becomes I don't want to do anything to screw that up or lose it. It's
Yeah.
too hard to get it.
I had to work for it. It's important to me
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to lose it. Wow. And it gets to the core of like human motivation because I think we value what we work for or that we put effort into. And you said something about shaming. It might in the moment kind of cause us to retreat, but it doesn't motivate us to do something more positive.
No, not at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, sometimes I'll tell women I have to get to know them. I'll say, "You're clever," I said, "but what you're doing isn't that clever to a man. He knows what you're doing. He's just acting like he doesn't because he doesn't want to fight." So you're
Okay.
not cleverly
So the
leading him a certain
nagging
way.
and
The nagging
all
or the
that stuff.
questions are my favorite. When you do
Uh
questions,
huh.
don't do that. I'm like, that's
Okay.
you sound like a detective. What, dude, don't you think? I'm like, don't over here because I don't want him talking to you that
Oh,
way either.
yes.
It's a lack of vulnerable. So if I'm
Yes.
asking questions, that's what I call hinting. I'm like, you're hinting because you don't want to actually say because he might get mad or he
Yeah.
might say something to you. So if it's worth saying, let's be authentic with it. It's it bothers me when you do this.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, it doesn't make me happy. In fact, it makes me feel upset or angry. No, again, see, that's a vulnerable conversation, but
Yes.
that vulnerability you talked about to me is where a woman's influence really is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the place I
Versus,
wonder.
yeah, because when I'm hearing you, like the hinting would be like, well, how do you think that would make me feel? Or I don't know, just like
Yeah.
when you put it as a question, it sounds like you're hiding. Not you're you're standing behind something to protect yourself versus
Yes.
being more.
What were you thinking coming 10 minutes late?
Mm.
I too. My first thought was I wasn't thinking anything. See that makes me just want to fire back if that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
Versus I'm really disappointed you were late. That hurts. I'm not devastated, but I can feel that.
Yes. Yes.
That now,
That
if a guy
really.
doubles down, gets real aggressive, pay attention to that. Because if you're
Okay.
authentic and he doubles down, that's not a you thing. That's a him thing. But for
Okay.
most men, you'll get a yeah, I'm sorry. And see now I know being on time is a big deal with her
Uh huh.
because I felt it, not because she explained it.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't the words; it was the emotions and the
It was the
feelings.
emotions. Because we hear emotions more than words. Women
Yeah.
hear words. I joke with women that say you can say, if you say it the right way, you can say green eggs and ham. And a guy will go, ooh. If I said that to a woman, she'd be like, "Green eggs and ham. What are you talking about?" It just what doesn't matter how I say it, but
Yes.
it is the motion behind it more than the words.
Yes. Yes. All right, ladies. So get your. I say there's three things: time, space, and tone that you need to learn as a woman communicating. And that tone, like you can make green eggs and ham just sound so soothing and
Mm.
enticing. So it sounds like that's a green flag. You said it like if you are authentic and he doubles down and gets defensive, that sounds like a red flag. What are some green flags, especially for women who've been hurt in the past, heartbroken, traumatized, don't trust? Like, what are some green flags in terms of how men are interacting with them, treating them?
So I think the main thing early on to look for is he making offers or invitations? So it's
Mm-hmm.
one thing if he's texting you, whatever, a couple of hours and say, "You want to get together tonight?" That's beyond lazy. So I'm not
Okay.
saying he's a bad person. That's just a lazy way of doing it. And so if he's not planning ahead early on, I would just make sure with your time frame that you're busy. You
Okay.
think it's too early to be convenient. And if we're going over time, the main thing I like women to look for is, and this takes a little time to find out, is what does he do when he's angry?
Mm-hmm.
Not just you, the waiter, the waitress, traffic. I don't expect him to be calm. I don't expect him to be perfect. But for you, I mean, some women can't stand a man that's loud. And so it's not even necessarily he loses his temper, he just gets louder.
Yeah.
But for you, that wouldn't be a good fit. Some women just don't ignore me. The loud,
Yeah.
I don't mind as much, but just don't ignore me,
Don't
whatever.
shut me out.
Don't shut me out. And to see what does he do, because he's going to have a way. And what I'm looking for is, does he at least try? I'm not saying he'll do flowers. He may not be romantic, but just from the will alone, does he make the effort to? He still keeps his word. He still follows
Mm-hmm.
through. If he's angry with you, does he address it with you and say, when you said that in front of my boss,
Mm.
I know you thought that was funny, but that was embarrassing. So
Yeah.
I want him to do that so he doesn't build up resentment.
Okay.
And
Versus
that's not
you
saying,
never knowing and
yes, you not knowing and
okay.
accumulating, because if he's not willing to address it early, I'm worried about him avoiding conflict and you
Okay.
not even knowing and getting hurt again because you got blindsided by something he said or did.
Yeah.
So I want to be is he emotionally safe, and what he does with anger is probably the best way we can tell that. And probably the last thing is he investing? The thing I look for is time and money. It's not the
Mm.
amount. It's more
Okay.
of a consistency. So like if
Yes.
he's not spending time with you or wanting to, why? If he's not spending money, I'm not doing an amount. But if
Yeah.
everything is let's go half, let's go cheap, or he wouldn't say cheap, let's go half, let's go, it's your turn, my turn.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's bad as much as it makes me a little nervous about the guy. I'm like, that's as a guy, that's not the way to impress her. That's you
Okay.
know, he's auditioning for you. You don't audition for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's our job to sell,
And we
and
decide if
you
that's what we
decide.
want to. Uh huh.
What's my job to give the pitch? I'm going to convince you, whatever the thing is, that you should be with me. Okay, maybe you're not, but we're used to this.
Yeah.
But you're not pitching us at all. I
Wow.
beg you not to.
Yes, yes. And I heard you kind of say that a little bit earlier, like stop doing all the stuff and being providing everything, leading everything. So you're looking for an investment in time and money because people invest in what they value. And it's not the amount is what I'm hearing you say. It's the motivation. Are you motivated to make a little sacrifice, to invest, to show that you're interested? All right, those are wonderful. Was there something else?
Well, I was going to say, if a woman has a question about, I'm not sure,
Uh-huh.
I say, is he investing time and money? Because men won't do those unless they're interested.
Okay.
Because men don't give chances like that. If he's,
Okay.
again, it's not the amount, but if he's asking you out, he's spending, again, some money, we view that as men as an investment. Men
Mm-hmm.
don't invest in things that they've already decided aren't going to go anywhere. So I
Okay.
may not know
That's just
everything,
not
but if he's doing
practical
those,
for them. Uh-huh.
no, that's foreign to us.
Yeah. 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 I think you put things in such a way that is very clear because I think these things, when said in the wrong way, rub women the wrong way. But I think when said with such care and just matter of fact, like this is what men do, I think it can be so well received. Your book is,
Called The Woman Men Adore.
yes, oh my gosh. I think you really painted a picture of her. But if women want to find out more, we're going to put the link to the book. But if they wanted to go beyond the book, how to become the women that men adore, how should they reach you?
Well, thanks for that. So they can go to our website at Relationship Headquarters. There's a link in coaching, and I've got an option. If you want to spend 15 minutes, just so we can go over and see if what's going on with you is something I can help with. I mean, some answers are really simple,
Mm-hmm.
some are a little more complex, but it's really about tell me what you want. So I've got a clear picture, and then let's make a plan to get there.
All right, great. We'll put that in the show notes. I do want to ask you something. So, you said some key phrases like hero response. I created a journal and a t shirt line called Damsel Me Please. And it's kind of
I
playing on
like
this
that.
idea of like how a woman can lean into her damselness that draws out the hero response in the man. And it doesn't mean, in my opinion, or the way I mean it, it doesn't mean you're dumbing yourself down or you're lowering yourself or you're saying that you're not worthy, but it's just allowing yourself to receive help and to know that like a man wants to help you. But what I'm hearing from you is if he doesn't think you need help, he's probably not going to expend that energy because he's very practical. He's like, oh, she's fine, she's got it. So I don't need to do any of that.
No, and as you're saying this, I think I've used the example sometimes of a queen. And, the queen in ancient times, it would be weird if the queen goes in there and helps out with the dishes because they would be like, why are you in here? It's not a cool thing. They're like,
Yeah.
that's weird. We don't want a queen that does that. We want a queen that's someone we can look up to and admire, that's
Mm-hmm.
kind, that's gracious. And from a man's standpoint, you know, I can hire someone to help me with this or that. I mean, that's great if you want to help out some, but that's not what I'm looking for. I can't have that emotional connection. And queen does not mean princess or entitled, like you said. It's not
Uh-huh.
weak or subservient. In ancient times, if you wanted to get the king's attention, you went through the queen. The
Mm.
queen had the key. She knew how to speak to the king. She knew what worked. She also had his best interests in mind, hopefully. But the queen was the one, not anyone else. And
Yeah.
that's the power a woman has, and men want a woman to have over them
Mm.
because it's that sort of dependence means I don't have to carry all this myself. I like someone that kind of like bounce stuff off of, that has my back, that I feel close to. And so that damsel persona you're talking about, we crave it. We like it.
Mm.
It's not subservient or anything like that.
Yeah.
It is greatly to be desired by men.
All right. I think that is a great place for us to stop. You reminded me of my one of my favorite shows, which is The Crown. I would
Oh
watch
yeah.
that
Hmm.
about Queen Elizabeth
Hmm.
and her just straddling her relationship with Prince not Harry, what's his I forgot his name now. Philip. Yeah.
Yeah. I was afraid to
But
guess.
yeah. But I love this conversation. Ladies, if you want to have a consultation call with Bob, make sure you go to the link in the show notes. Also, I have the link to my book, The Boundaries to Bliss Blueprint, for women who are finally ready to win at love and have those balanced boundaries while also leaning into your feminine energy. I want to thank you so much, Bob. This has been wonderful. Any last words, anything you want women to understand or know or walk away with?
Well, thanks, Nicole. I'm pleased just to listen to you. For all the listeners, what she's describing, just from just sitting here listening from a man's
Mm,
perspective, for us it feels normal. For us, it would feel like, how do I get more of that? So all that she's sharing with you, especially when she talks about feminine, it's not just a cliche. It's not just something to say. There's a lot of depth behind it. So I would encourage everyone that listens to experiment with some of the things she's telling you. And I've enjoyed this, just being a guest the way you hosted this.
thank you so much. All right, everybody. I will see you in the next episode. I'm Dr. Nicole.